cast.
Let's do it.
So we haven't sat down and figured some things out for him. Yeah, for a skinny second. Yeah, and a lot's changed in the world in 4 weeks. And so we woke up this morning to a president-elect. Not terribly surprised about that. When you have giants of industry and significant, I've wanted to talk to you about this forever, the significant across the aisle, over the Rubicon, if you will, reach towards an RFK Jr. To join, Make America Great Again, to join with his similar ideals. That's an enormous reach.
Yeah.
Because, not only is that a Kennedy, it's like a lifelong, very strong
Democratic
candidate. Right. Even ran as a Democrat, had to change to independent, but everybody knew he was a Democrat. And to have him reach across, and then Elon Musk, a giant of industry for sure, in many different ways, as far as free speech, as far as development and research and all that stuff. He likes space, and he likes to put little cars on the road that you and I don't really that excited about, because we don't want to sit there and
like
read
everyone else. That's all.
Dare to be different. And I just saw that this coming together seemed to kind of represent in my eyes. I'm kind of hopeful that something we've been talking about, and I want to wrap it all up into the next 20 minutes time, see if we can do it, is this divide that have grown accustomed to. Back when there was a bull market, and there was a Monica Lewinsky, and there was a whole bunch of weird stuff going on because the word impeachment wasn't thrown around much. That seemed more serious back when Bill Clinton was president. Now, my lights were pretty on during the 90s, so I got to see this, and impeachment seemed like such a powerful word. Now we hear it for every president there's been since, but nonetheless, it seems to have lost its power. So you get the Lewinsky thing, but just imagine that now, that exact same scenario going on today, as opposed to back in the 90s, and where you have podcasting, where you have social media at all the X's and O's and elemental P's and algorithms and all that jazz. And you've got one side of the media doing this and the other side of the media doing this. And imagine that exact presidency today. And we wonder why the divide. Just plug it in now.
Just meaning those events of the controversy?
Correct. Now you go Bush. Fast forward to Bush, and you get the hanging Chad. Imagine that controversy today, with all the voter fraud and all the narrative that we have going on now. Imagine that going on today. Fast forward just a few months down the road, or the 9/11, the war in Iraq. Imagine all of these, the crazy bubble that bursts, the giving money to enormous special interest groups as a government, getting involved in saving the banks and saving the car manufacturers and all that jazz. Imagine all of that happening today. That was a COVID almost type expense. Almost. I say almost, but probably looks about the same with those dollars and our dollars. Obama and the Obamacare fiasco it was, this, that, and the other, and just the say anything, good headline type, and then just kind of a limp noodle everywhere else, especially when he had the House and Senate for the first term. And it's kind of like, okay, well, that was interestingly, the executive grew quite a bit during that particular time. But if you plug in any of these presidencies in today's day, I feel like we have that, and I brought this up before to you, we have that fatigue of maybe too much information, maybe too much slant, maybe too much bias. It's or we've mentioned it with our kids and how they're kind of just used to all the noise. And it's kind of like you've got a really loud mom and she becomes a white noise and so has to get louder and louder to get your attention. And so the media, in my opinion, has become quite white noise-ish. And so you have the boots on the ground. Trump ran a very similar campaign in 2020 as he did in 2016. He had a very boots on the ground, but a much more concerted effort. I'm going to say the McCarthy step down. I'm getting in some weeds here, but I'm going to say the step down in McCarthy or the ouster, whatever you want to call it. It didn't seem that ugly. And in this very politicized and very highly talked about world we live in, how in the Sam does a Speaker of the House just kind of trade spots that took 17 tries to get in there to begin with, just kind of faded off? Well, did the House and the Senate flip last night?
Senate flipped.
Senate flipped.
House, we're still waiting.
It looks as though the projections are both flipped. McCarthy have anything to do with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest, the underlying issue in all of that is that we've got an opportunity. There's an opportunity out. The Republican Party was splintered so much in the last 4 years. No, not in the last 4 years. Probably 16 years.
Yeah.
We've been going that direction where, you know, the amount of independent voters that were out there, which I believe a lot are not former Democrats, but a lot are former Republicans. I saw all the polls of the amount of independent registered voters and the amount that identified, even when they were Republican, identified as independent thinking and may have even voted across party lines last night. Saw a lot of information on that's how this election was won on the independent side of things. And or, you know, before we had Republicans reaching across party lines because they didn't like Trump or didn't like whatever. Last night seemed to be different. And so there's an opportunity right now to unite the Republican Party. It was the first indication that we have some kind of unification on the Republican Party. Money talks. And money talked last night.
Right.
Trump did a good job of running a campaign focused on issues.
Right.
And issues mattered for the first, like all the social
First time it just seemed
all the social stuff, which has always kind of ruled the roost before, you know, whether it be abortion, whether it be, you know, gender equality, whatever, all these things that were major issues in elections past took way backseat to money.
Yep.
And people that traditionally, like I was surprised to hear that he got the Black and Latino men vote last night, which means that obviously they were sacrificing, because a lot of these Latino men are going to be pro-immigration reform on more of a less of a Trump's kind of purview, but money talked to him more than that.
Right. I will say that's interesting because the Latinos, it's twofold there. Latinos, as we both know, Dios primero Dios.
Yeah, you know, 20, 30 years ago, Republican leaning.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yes. And so now, you know, the monster at the border, and they're still voting for that. And so the interesting thing is because they're so far back in line, you know this firsthand, and everything's so jacked up. And the fear factor of those that have been here forever and a day and they're still trying to, you know, fight their way through that battlefield of immigration, to get some documentation to be here legally to where they don't have to be in the shadows and all that stuff. That's the stuff you look at and deal with daily. And that's the stuff that we kind of help clean that situation up best we can to where they can have that opportunity to remain here with their families, a land that they've pretty much only known.
And that's going to get harder.
Yep.
Honestly. And Trump's not going to make that any easier. I mean, I don't hear any propositions of actual legal pathways. It's just basically enforcement.
So Brad, of course, you're right. Enforcement, I think, is the first step, but you brought this up a lot of times. Enforcement matters, but it's step one.
Yeah, and we'll see.
It's step one. I get that. Okay, but McCarthy, back to him. What has he been?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I kind of ignored your question because I don't know the answer. I don't know if there's a direct correlation to
going to tell you
because that looked like a further splintering of the Republican Party.
It wasn't.
You think it was a unification
unification
of saying that he was a representative of some old.
He became Trump's right-hand man for the Senate and the House. To let's get the Senate, let's get the House, let's get together, let's get across whatever we can get across, and let's start unifying. And McCarthy is a great candidate for that. He's a very, very sharp dude, and it's interesting that he went so quietly, is all I'm going to say, and so dignified. Is there a big difference between what McCarthy was and Johnson? No. You know what I mean? But was McCarthy probably needed elsewhere? Then you bring up what you just said about the Latino vote, and I think a lot more people are listening to a Vivek Ramaswamy nowadays, and he's letting the cat out of the bag far more than Trump is, because Trump sticks to the script, sticks to the economy, sticks to the border, sticks to those things that are affecting Americans right now, price tags at the pump, energy and power.
And I think Trump if I was advising him, knowing that the way he scored with the Latino vote, man, throw the border security and just hyper focus on that. Kind of throw the mass deportation rhetoric out the back seat a little bit. And I think he could have captured even more. I think that's the one thing that they were still holding on to on the other side, to say, well, say this is going to be I mean, I even read this morning, it said, hey, the economy was the big issue, but you deport all of our labor and inflation is going to go up no matter what too. And so he's kind of hasn't. Last time he talked about mass deportations, he had a plan, and he had this time he's kind of just said it. Yeah, it's been really vague as to how he's going to.
So Ramaswamy's been talking about that. So we want all our 92 people out there, or however many we have, 900 something. We need you to send this to everybody, because what we're about to talk about is just that. We both know, this is where it gets big, guys. We both know there is no such thing as mass deportation. We don't have the manpower. It would be exactly like somebody comes in here to talk to me about a domestic violence case, and the wife and the husband are sitting together in the office, and the husband's accused of hitting her, or she's accused of hitting him, whatever the case may have been, or abuse on some level. Police show up, and they have a duty to haul somebody off. It's their policy. Somebody has to get hauled off. Okay. I'm going to get quick to this. And they're like, we were just got a little bit loud about, what to buy Johnny for Christmas. And I thought this, and she thought that, and and the neighbor called, and, so the cops come, and, oh, nope, I see that little mark on your arm. What do you mean? I got that this morning when I was, in jujitsu. And so the wife gets hauled off, type thing, right? Okay. Husband doesn't want to testify against wife. He gets a letter saying, we're going to subpoena you and come after you, and you're going to have this, and that if you don't show up. Well, it's misdemeanor court. How many times have I ever seen that happen in 20 plus years of doing defense work? Zero. If that's all if our police did actually make good on that piece of paper, that's all they would be doing all day long. They would not be doing any type of policing, but for dragging in
people that didn't show up.
And so it's just impossible. So that when I hear mass deportation, we don't have the money or manpower or the how. Now,
well, and even Rubio said last night, they asked him the same question, and he's obviously a staunch Trump supporter, and he kind of skirted the issue too. He said, we will focus on criminal priorities,
right?
On that situation.
I think they're on a page right now behind, because Vivek's kind of taken center stage on that particular issue, which I find interesting, because Vivek has a pretty wide berth of talents. But on that particular issue, he said, we want those that contribute to our country. And we want them to have an opportunity here that contribute to our country, but those that do not contribute to our country need to be deported. And so when you think about it, the parole in place, and you think about the asylum seekers, we at least have some semblance of information as to who they are, So mass deportation is a little bit strong of a word here. We're focusing on, it's not really a needle in a haystack either.
Yeah.
So we're focusing on a subgroup of folks that, claimed certain things, and we're going to have to figure out, all right, you're here.
Yeah, and I would love Trump
the law back
to have some guts.
Figures this thing out.
Like, the enforcement part's the easy part, right? That doesn't take a lot of guts, other than you just have to stick your neck out there and say you're gone. But solutions take guts, and so it'd be interesting to see, and especially if it really truly goes Republican side for the House and the Senate, and there's full control for the next 2 years. There's a lot that can be done, and I hope that it's truly working on the underlying issues, not just putting Band-Aids on, because we talked about this pendulum swing. Trump shut it all down, but really no solutions, just shut it all down. Biden opens it back up, no solutions.
Pull her up.
And now we've got a problem. And so, we've created both problems.
Right.
Yeah. And so
we need to be here.
Yeah. Let's see if we can, get the border secured and then work on doing some stuff here.
No, I completely agree. I just think that when Trump goes, anytime he does something kind of big, he doesn't do anything. He's a very interesting character. The huge things that he does, he doesn't talk about.
Yeah.
Like the Abrahamic Accords. I mean, chips on it here and there every once in a while. He doesn't blow that up. That was pretty heroic almost. Walking across the DMZ. Never brought it up one time. Are you kidding me? He walked across the DMZ. I mean, he had a dude threatening nuclear. I said that right? He had a dude threatening nuclear weaponry against us, and he just walks over to him. Across a zone nobody's walking over, ever, especially a dignitary or a president of the United States going...
No, he's blissfully ignorant of his own, humanity, or his own... His own... Yeah, I mean, which can be good, and he's got 4 years to pull this off.
Look,
he doesn't have to worry about re-election. So,
right. So the bottom line is, okay, I'm getting to somewhere with it, but bottom line, if Paige was in here, she'd be jamming on. It's not necessarily that. I think that he doesn't respect what he expects from himself. So for example, that's a very tough thing to kind of break down, but for example, him walking across the DMZ line, why wouldn't I?
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. It's the blissful ignorance, right? Or the blissful
he just
arrogance.
Right. Maybe there's an arrogance to it. Maybe it's an ignorance to it. Maybe it's just of course I did that. I wouldn't do that. I mean, holy crap. But, or when he slips the picture of Baghdadi to, Xi Jinping. And that, the pictures speak pretty loudly. That's why he is quietly a monster.
No, he gets things done. That's why I said I hope on my end, just because it's needed, and we've talked about this till we're blue in the face, but immigration's the thing that I obviously have personal knowledge of, and so I hope he gets it done. And there's lots of economy wise, I think those can run one and the same. I'm hoping the economy, like everyone else, that our inflation goes down.
Now, he's not.
That's what he ran on.
He's not wrong about drilling and becoming a super powerhouse with energy. He's not wrong with having Elon in there for having trim a lot of fat. And then once you're done with that, because it doesn't take a whole lot of time to do that, once you're done with that, then you're going to say, all right, Elon, so what are we going to do about this energy thing? And we've got all this oil now, and that's not going away. And I don't think Elon thinks it's going away either. I mean, hell, if it was up to him, he'd likely have
oil to produce
every
batteries anyway.
Right. And so he's going to go, all right, well, this is what we need to do. And here's some renewable here, and here's some this there. And let's package this to where it's palatable. And those that are screaming acid rain and ozone layer and end of days and ice age, they're still going to, but they'll have a little less to scream about because, we're able to partition it out and try to make it good energy.
Do you think that Trump is going to surround himself with, because we've seen his presidency before, so we have experience. We also know, probably lessons he learned. And do you think he's going to surround himself with yes men in his cabinet, or are we going to get some powers of industry? Are we going to get some people that'll...
Well, I don't think
that won't stroke his ego.
I don't think Vivek is a yes man.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't think Elon is.
I don't think JD is. Frankly, I don't.
Yeah.
JD was a never Trumper.
I mean, I think he had to be during this campaign, but
Yes
I don't
and no. I mean, that whole cat comment, the things that they ran with him, and he's like,
yeah,
I own it. That's just too.
I feel different now. That's what I wonder.
His record reflected that he felt different even before the last election, the 2020 election.
Trump's ego, I mean, whether we will...
Hard to call it.
His ego is really fragile,
Yeah.
right? And so the only thing that, if we're going to get something done, I think he needs to surround himself with people that aren't just going to stroke his ego. And so I hope he does. I hope he lets down the pride a little bit. And
I think that
there could be so much to be done. There could be so much
that we think his ego is fragile. I don't think it is at all. Because you don't become a mogul in New York City and have a fragile ego. You don't become...
Yeah, but usually somebody with a fragile ego is super defensive. He's super defensive.
Well, I would say that if you were accused of crimes at the degree he's been, and you've been attacked at the degree he's been since 16, like the attacks, the Russia's thing, everything that everybody... I mean, at some point you're going to go... I mean, he was the first one, and it caught on. It's like fake news. I mean, that was the first time he said it.
I'm not saying it's even I'm super worried about it.
But I'm excited about one thing. There was some rally. Hard to keep them all straight. So I don't know where this was. But he said it clearly. So I rewound it a few times on whatever short clip I was listening to, and then went and listened to the whole thing on this particular rally. That's not a usual thing for me. Usually just kind of get, oh, okay, all right, you know. And here it was, we're gonna build the wall. Talks about the wall again. Big shocker, right? And we're gonna build a big, beautiful door. Big, beautiful door for those that can come in here illegally to contribute. Anyway, he started talking, and he said this in a few different rallies, but it hasn't been a main talking point for him. But the fact that his head is there, and the fact that Vivek is over here saying certain things like that, and the fact that we've got a few, RFKJ, is not a yes man. He's going into this hot.
Yeah,
he's going into this kind of,
and even the JD Vance pick, I think, was an interesting move on his part, not true to form of administration past. So I hope so. That's why I asked the question. My faith and hope is that we're not going into, that we're going into with some real smart people that know that there needs to be solutions, not band-aids. Yeah.
I agree. And I think JD Vance is a fantastic pick, and I didn't know what to make of him at the beginning. But the reality is nobody's taken a shot at Trump once JD got a little bit more established. Oh boy. Do we want to deal with JD or do we want to deal with Trump? Because now JD doesn't have quite the same Trump presence, and he's a much younger fella, but Trump had that presence at that age. I mean, you go back and look at those interviews with Oprah and interviews with Donahue and I mean, he said the exact same things he's saying now. That why are we doing this with, China? Why are we doing this with this? Why are we paying everybody? And, and everything he thinks in terms of business. But when he was in the White House, it became, this is more than business. Because we've got this going on over here in the Middle East. We've got this going on in North Korea. We have this going on in Russia, and Russia wants real bad to have the Ukraine, and that's not good. So I'm going to get blah, 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 blah. And the second he's gone, Afghanistan, I don't like being in Afghanistan, and that whole pullout. So it's an interesting thing that all of a sudden this wasn't just about money. His wheelhouse is playing checkers about money and, how to spread it out as best he can for the American people. I think that's what his true Santa Claus kind of wanted. I think that's how he had it in his mind, and he kind of outside, deep down, knew it would be a little bit harder than that, but pretty much that would solve or heal all wounds, right? And he'd go down in history for being the Santa Claus president, bolstering industry the way it could be, and the way we are designed to be. But here we are in a tale that you can't make up. And so, okay, let's see what he's going into this presidency, not going, hey, okay, what are you saying, General Milley? What are you saying? He's not learning anything now. He's going in with people that have been there, done that, starting the movie. and so those that he already knows, and some folks that are, very, very progressive, because RFKJ is progressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't agree with everything he's about at all, but he's nothing short of a very, very bright guy, and wants, in my opinion, the same thing for the health of Americans that the Trump wants for the wealth of Americans. And so, a strong country does produce a strong world. And for some reason, our country is that light on a shining hill, or the shining light on a hill. And to me, it's interesting that I believe that we can, and I'm going to leave it for you the rest of the time. I believe that we can spit out, like you were saying, independents and folks like that, and Latinos and black vote, male black vote, weren't impressed by the Cardi B's and the Jennifer Lopez's and the Oprah's, and folks that really live in La La Land.
Yeah, the celebrity vote didn't matter this year.
So interesting. It's gone. It's gone. Clooney.
It was an Obama creation, and it may rear its head in the future.
I don't see.
But
I don't see it.
As long as money is on the board, that doesn't matter anymore.
I don't see it. With the social media, think of this. Okay, the unintended consequences. So I don't think that this was even intended at all. But it makes De Niro some babbling quack job. It makes Springsteen go, okay. Well, because I'm looking at 4 billion other faces on the social media, and somebody could be famous for 15 minutes now, and that chips a little bit at their fame. No, and that chips a little bit at the fame that
I literally think it is so simple. I think it was so simple on this one. I literally think it was, if you're a Taylor Swift fan 4 years ago and you had $50 in your pocket and a burger was $5, you listen to what Taylor Swift said.
Right.
But when you're a Taylor Swift fan in 2024 and you've got a $15 hamburger and you got $10 in your pocket, you start listening, oh, what is the actual issue? I don't care what Taylor Swift stands for anymore as far as social issues. What are our policies here to get me more money in my pocket? That's really what I think it is. All the social issues, I think they're still there on the back burner. I think people still may or may not, but that wasn't the deciding factor this time. And Trump did a good job. Like, he won on the economy and fix it now.
I like that. I don't agree with it. But I agree with it in
there was so much less social.
I'm gonna not dissent.
Yeah.
I'm gonna concur. Well, that's a stupid word.
No, I mean,
but you know what I mean. In the dicta here, I completely agree that the hunger of the nation changes.
Because look at Arizona. We are so schizo. Like, we voted Trump.
We're still schizo.
But I'm telling you, last night, we voted Trump. Well, at least that's what it looks like. Yet we voted Ruben Gallego. Yet we voted abortion. Yet we voted border security.
Yeah.
Like, all of them are, these are issues that are on way far sides of the realm of the middle line here. And so people still care about the issues, and but they view the executive branch, the president of the United States, as the person that has been responsible for inflation, gas prices,
which is what they
home
should
prices, and whatever else. And so that's where the issue is decided. But on the social issues, they're looking more at their local leaders, and I think that's why you saw more of a break on, at least here in Arizona, on some of those things. But I really think it's just this one was
How long have you been in Arizona?
Since 2004.
Okay. Long time. Right? We've never had a good governor. I was born here. We've never had Ducey was the
I
best.
Loved Ducey.
The COVID I've seen.
That's the best.
Ducey was the best I've seen, but I think COVID kind of overshadowed.
Was it Napolitano before? Correct.
Yeah.
She spoke at my law school graduation.
Yeah, look, we are in drastic need of good state leadership and local. And because we've always been, because we're off topic now, but it doesn't matter. We've always been a California drain.
Mm-hmm.
So the dregs of California come here, and not the dregs, but the refugees, actually, I call them the refugees of Cali, and the crappy policies that they continue to pass and try to shove down their citizens' throat and take the greatest state likely. I mean, the most beautiful state, rich in everything you could be rich in. and just kill it. Even Hollywood's dying a slow death. So that said, and they've been leaking here for a long time. Same with Chicago and same with New York. So we've got a lot of blue coming our way. And they're coming our way because the blue policies in their states sucked, and they can buy a house here and make a living here, and then they want to come and blue it up, and they've done so.
Which I think proves my point.
Yeah.
Socially, they still, on the state level, hey, Ruben Gallego, you're going to be our representative.
Right.
But Trump, you've got to give me more money in my pocket.
Right.
So.
And so I agree. So I catch in on that. 'Cause, I'm a fifth generation Arizona guy. Look, there's a way to, I believe our focus should be, you and I as Arizonans, should be on Arizona and how our state can be a better state. I mean, this is our yard to tend, to quote Kamala Harris there. I got a front yard. We take a lot of pride in our yard.
And this ancillary benefit, the extra benefit for somebody who leans conservative like I tend to do is that we voted somebody maybe, in my opinion, for financial reasons, but it comes with potential to clean up some of the social issues that I feel are important, because every election there's loaded issues all over the place. And so I'm hoping the trickle down effect is now, a lot of other things that I haven't loved in the last 8 years will
long.
Yeah, long. We'll
I like
fruition. But I really think it was just
I like who he came in with. That's where I'm going to end pretty much. I like that there's across party lines. Trump's not a real Republican. Trump's kind of an old school,
not historic,
kind of a libertarian / maybe a little bit Democrat type. I mean, he was forever. And it's not like it's as the government grew with the red side of things, he did not like that. And as the government grew with the blue side of things, that's when he ended up entering the race.
That's what I have. That's what the prayers and faith there are, is that he stopped, now that he's elected and he's, there's no real, who knows what happens with politics, but we don't have this need to run and campaign again and pander to the Tea Party extreme right or whatever else. I hope that now we can fly, we can do some things, because
all they need to do, by they meaning any side of the extremes, is take one step toward the middle.
And I'm hoping this is,
and that's what I feel like, that we talked about it a few pods back, that they're spitting out in the middle. I feel like that's what's kind of going on. And since we talked, RFK, it was so hard for me not to call you. You were on vacation. RFK Jr. joined, and I was like, I got to call Westover. That was a big.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out how many that were on that side of things ended up on the Trump. I'm assuming there's
interested in the mindset of Trump, mainly because that was a potential of taking some of what everybody feels like he's a media hawk or hound or whatever. He's looking for attention or the spotlight or this or that or the other. And he took a dude and made him vice president, J.D. Vance, who has a movie that was based on his book that he wrote, and a good book, by the way, a very intriguing read. I went and read it just to see what's what there with the hillbilly elegy, and I thought it really drove me over to Thomas Sowell a little bit. Like, this is really interesting. Just kind of putting a lot in common with everybody. Economically, we're economically divided. Really, we're not color divided.
Yeah.
And I found that very interesting. That said, okay, again, just moving forward from that, it's when he starts, okay, RFK, I agree with this health stuff and this pharma stuff, and tell me why we're advertising pharmaceuticals, one of only 2 countries that do in the world. And the other country doesn't look like it's doing too terribly great. So
yeah, that's an amazing thing when you travel. It's
so interesting. I mean, you're sitting there watching a football game, and then all of a sudden you're looking at Plaxidil or whatever commercial, or usually
pharma and insurance. Those are the two that where this country is very unique in what we.
And we probably, and the insurance company does a much better job. Let's be straight. Their commercials are funnier. I mean, Mayhem is great.
It's just amount of revenue spent on advertising of those two particular, like literally it's 3 out of 4 commercials.
Half the time I'm, because we do personal injury here, we need to talk to your ladies over there at your buffet at your firm, because you've got to be getting calls for PI stuff, because the Latinos are scared to make a claim.
Really?
A lot of times. And so, I had one that was just wrapped around a pole over the weekend because they got hit and ended up, oh man, it was really bad. He had 4 of his little ones in, his wife and he and his sister-in-law. So you've got quite a few folks banged up real good. He's scared to death to make a claim. And he has insurance. The other folks are cited have insurance. I mean, this seems to be a no-brainer, right? But yet in his mind, it's like
anything.
ICE might be in the hospital.
Oh, I called you the other day on somebody that was a victim of a crime, remember?
Right.
That got punched in a gas station, literally got pulled out by a homeless guy and beat up, and finally defended himself with the cleaning of the windshield, whatever. He whacked.
Oh, yeah, no, the windshield cleaner.
Yeah, cleaning thing. And he was able to get a hold of that and whacked the guy over the head and kind of knocked him down, and was in no way charged for anything. But when the police came, gave a false name and I'm like, why? I don't know. In the moment, I'm illegal and I don't want to. And so, I get it. Fear still exists. And
it's very prevalent amongst them all. And because they want a chance, to live the American dream. And really all they really want, we've talked about it a zillion of 6 times. Most, I don't like to generalize. I do actually love to generalize, but I would say in our experience, and you can disagree with me here, but most want to be able to work in peace and not be in shadow.
That's why Trump won the Latino male vote, because of that reason. What you just said is that, look, if you're coming to sacrificing everything that you have to cross a border and to come here, it's because you want to prosper.
Right.
And that's an indication that they've grabbed hold of the American dream, right? They've seen it before. They've felt it and experienced it before. And so once the money starts draining out of their pockets, it becomes more valuable to them to have somebody in there that can bring it in. So.
Agree. And so that's what so we have a quorum there. We agree there. And I think that many millions of folks that are here still maintain that mindset that they want, a little bit of peace would be great. They don't they're not looking for citizenship. They're not looking, residency would be great for them. You know what I mean? But a work permit that they renew would be, man, that'd be something that they would cherish.
But I'll tell you on my end that it's interesting that you say that, because most residents of the United States that I have had the opportunity of helping get their green cards, it's very rare that I see somebody not become a citizen.
Right. But once they get the green card, it's kind of like that's their step.
I mean, but
how
assimilate here, they want to be here.
How long's the process?
I mean, they have to be a green card holder for 5 years usually.
Right. And so let's say that there's a process there. And to me, that makes some sense, because you've got to go back to, and I forget who said this. It was a great economist that just said the true part out loud. And you don't like when I say stuff like this, and I get it. But when you say illegal immigration is beautiful because it's illegal, so it keeps the prices down. This is back in, and I forget who said that, but it was very, very well-named man. And he was but I think he was Clinton's.
Yeah.
I want to say, anyway, he's not wrong. And so neither are we when we say, okay, well, 5 years, let's say that they start their residency type push, or whatever the case might be, their path to citizenship. Well, how many others just began that 5 years? How many others just began that 5 years? How many others just began that 5 years? So, to me, it's a pretty decent circle, because they make good neighbors. They make good. They're grateful for this freedom and this economic potential that they have.
It's cyclical. It's kind of interesting, because it's interesting to see the progression of my clients when they get a green card, and a lot of them will all of a sudden start their own businesses and start to employ other people.
And those that you represent that need the labor,
I end up being their employees. And so, it's interesting. It's cyclical, but once they establish themselves, there's like I said, that's kind of indicative of what happened last night in the elections, because the ones that are eligible to vote are the ones that have gone through this process, have gotten their green card, and now have become citizens, and they've seen their rise to being able to be business owners and small business owners, and that mattered to them this time.
Here's your homework. This is going to be good homework. McCarthy, look him up a little bit. Chase him down just a little bit. I want your take on him because I think that he's a very major player, not necessarily on the scenes now, kind of behind more. And I believe that he's very bright, and I believe that he's very America first. I think he's very genuine in what he's trying to do. I think that he's genuine in trying to bridge that divide. And I like that. I'm kind of getting that.
He's going to be a player here in the future.
I don't know if he's going to be a political player. I believe that he's going to be something. I don't know what, but I believe that he already has been integral in, the reason why there was no red wave in 22 was we really poorly funded a lot of not that great of candidates, just to be frank, and just kind of blew the money that the Republicans had on the wrong forces, and by a landslide. And McCarthy's like, what is going on here? And so when he had the purse, what he was able to do with that purse was to maintain that shred of the red in Congress, to where they were the majority by a small amount for the last 2 years, and when the Senate was blue, and by a shred as well. But he was able to kind of do that in a much more efficient way, since kind of learning from that 22, not kind of that cluster. And so he got some attention that way, but I don't think he really...
You've been paying attention to him more than I have. He kind of went up in the distance to me, so...
It's a little bit. He's intriguing to me. And so I feel like he's kind of this catalyst of unification. Now, we're going to be uniquely divided no matter how you slice the banana, because of how undisciplined we are and how much time we spend staring at our phones, staring at televisions, staring at screens, mainly phones and screens. The
opportunity is there to just stay on the issue. Don't get off on your tangents, and I think that there's a lot that can be done here. We'll see.
I'm hopeful, but I'm just, here we go, and let's see if we can't get a little bit closer.
So this is the most unified that at least one side's been in a long time. So
we're going to end up. That was good. That was powerful.